injury and recovery. And I think most people start their journey in peptides Googling and finding BPC-157. I'm sure then they get into TB-500, all these other ones. And so I'm just curious, let's start with just BPC and TB-500. How do you feel like they differ mechanistically, and how do you feel like they can contribute to injuries and recoveries?
So I see them as completely different players, actually.
Yes. Yes.
I look at TB-500 as being the only thing that really drives neonatal gene expression, whereas BPC-157, for me, that's more of like the actin tissue sequestering protein healing aspect of things. Okay. So you're almost looking at like a genetic player and a tissue player. They complement each other very well. They can't have so much spillover, but like the mitogen activated protein kinase cascade of BPC, you don't get from TB. And so you can't use TB-500 to drive apoptosis of tumors, for example. Or TB-500, if you are someone who just had a stroke, for example, it's not going to have the same hemorrhagic reversal effects from a neonatal gene expression aspect. So if you have a stroke, you take a bolus of TB-500, and that just happened on the group, right? Where someone had an individual, I think it was his mother, that had a stroke. He gave him a bolus, and after that, the mother didn't show signs of having a stroke in the hospital. And we've heard that time and time again. You can't get that with BPC. So to me, they're almost completely different compounds, but you can use them at the same time with a lot of potentiation.
For sure. And what other kind of, I guess, stacks and or compounds do you like to use to, let's say, speed up healing of bone or tissue?
I'm a big fan of bone and Merlot. So if you look more like at the bioregulators and things like that, because I think stacking these things obviously is where a lot of magic happens. Everyone knows that, because the bioregulators, they're not that chemically strong, but over time they really add up. So to me, having something to push the bone healing aspect of like a bone and Merlot, oral, you can use. We won't talk about that yet. We'll go with GHK-Cu because more people will talk about that one than like a Cardalax. But GHK-Cu will not just drive the collagen production, but it'll also drive a lot of the stem cell mobilization factors. So you could use transdermal GHK-Cu for topical stem cell migration. You can also use, if you look like erectile tissue for males, if you're using something like a transdermal GHK-Cu, that's going to drive more of the collagen, which is more of like the lengthening effect, where something like the girth is more of the vascular effect. So that'd be coming more from like a BPC-157. Injectable, transdermal, things like that. And so to me, you can layer, like if you're trying to go to the bone, soft tissue, that could be like a bone and Merlot, could be like a GHK-Cu. And then I guess we'll say Cardalax because I brought that up. Cardalax from like a soft tissue aspect, I still feel is one of the best players out there.
Can you explain Cardalax?
Cardalax is awesome. So one of the things it does super well is it improves the IGF gene receptor sensitivity. So not that it jacks up your IGF level dramatically, but the molecules of IGF it produces seem to be more robust and have a higher chemical potential. So now everything in the soft tissue remodeling world goes up. It'll drive everything from, just name a soft tissue piece of tendon, ligament, any architecture like that will get more blood flow, more hemodynamics to the area, and will drive more overall healing. There's a lot of other cool things, but Cardalax, like those are the two main things I'd say that it does the best. A lot of other things don't really do.
Beautiful. I'm gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
So I know that it can get difficult with athletes using some of these compounds. Do you have a more athlete-driven protocol that you tend to use, obviously with WADA and things like that, that you tend to go towards when you are working with an athlete overcoming an injury?
I have a list of a ton of things. Okay. Don't want to say too many things publicly because,
of course.
But one I'll bring up right now. Did you hear the whole penis gate thing with the Winter Olympics?
Is that with the, I can't remember the sport, that go up injections in the penis? And
yep.
Oh yeah.
That's the skiing, the snowboarding. So we did that a couple, I believe it was 2 Olympics ago. I taught some protocols, some individuals over there, some coaches. It's just coming out now. This has been going on for a while, where you're essentially temporarily hypertrophying the penis so you can go ahead and get the actual clothing to fit. So then once you atrophy the penis, you have more leeway, which can catch the air and create a gliding like effect, kind of like a parasol. So you can get an extra couple inches. You can get a good amount of, just by doing something like that. And I didn't think that anyone really caught on to it. And then people have been blowing me up for the past week about this news article, that news article. And I was like, okay, this is what happens when you teach something to too many people, where someone wants to look cool and then now it's out there. It's not illegal. It's just being more creative than the people that make the rules. But something like that, something like I love Metaform, which is an injection of hyaluronic acid. So something like that for that specific sport would be like hyaluronic acid. There are other players like the topical transdermal GHK-Cu, because getting that erectile growth can be done by a couple different ways. There's a couple other topicals and things I won't talk about, but they were talking about using a couple other compounds in the articles, which I don't know what they were talking about, but there's a lot of cool things. But at that level with WADA, USADA, even like the NFLPA, NHLPA, all those players associations, you're looking more at what's the right way to say this? How much testing is being done. So if you look in the NFL, NHL, NBA, urine tests, they basically have half of what's on the WADA USADA list. It's urine, so there's a lot of things missing. WADA USADA, then you could do blood, you could do hair, you could do biological passport testing. You have a lot more in-depth things. I try to sidestep all that and just say, okay, if it's on the list, we don't use it. Let's be 10 steps ahead and just make new molecules. That's where the Klotho Protein Peptide 1, that's where VD11, that's where FOXO3, and all these things that we're creating are really taking storm, because there won't be big or on WADA's radar to where they can actually test it for years. And by that point, we'll have even new molecules. So I try and more go with just synthesizing new molecules.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Yeah. And I know you mentioned Klotho, and I think that one is starting to be a little bit more popular. I think people are starting to understand it a little more. To what aspect are you using it with patients? Is it more just for those who are wanting better longevity? Or how do you introduce that to those who are wanting to learn more about Klotho?
So usually if you're dysfunctional, anyone can take this, okay? Any kind of health disorder, anyone can take this. You have the geriatric, you have the adolescent. There's a good range of application here. Still figuring out what the animal population, so I'll get back to you guys on that. But in the human world, if you're healthy and fine, I would say probably wait until you're about 30, because at 30-ish, that's never downregulation of stem cell donation, of mitochondrial superoxide dismutase. Wait till things go down, then replace. Same with Klotho levels. But also athletes can take this. So the age thing also doesn't matter. So in reality, I have absolutely everyone taking it that can't afford it if they can't utilize it. If you look at what it does with its FGF23 complex, pushing down protein kinase B, C, pushing the FGF21 complex, like all these things it does, anything you can say positive about a biochemical action, Klotho has positive interactions with. It'll modulate that FOXO3, so it'll literally drive global cellular healing. Everyone could use that, whether you're an athlete, general population, dysfunctional. So I'm saying that everyone can use it forever, but man, I really like it for that person. Remember, everyone out there listening, this is Klotho Protein Peptide 1. Specifically, this is not recombinant Klotho. This is not Klotho Protein Peptide 6, which is more renal failure specific. This is specifically KLP1, because that makes a huge difference.
And do you go specific, I'm sure you do, with more of the alpha versus the, like that kind of structure of it?
You don't have to with the protein one, because we're getting the endogenous interaction, which is the whole shining factor. If you look at recombinant Klotho, very chemically strong, nothing against it, love it, everything has its place and purpose, but you have to have crazy low doses. You cannot do it frequently, and that has more potential for negative side effects versus getting more of your endogenous Klotho released from cells. So this is where peptide variations, to me, stand out for their very low side effect profile.
Beautiful.